guys to our second video in our Finding Your Identity in Christ Before a Relationship series. But before we dive right on into our psalm of the day, our tea of the day, and then our actual study for today, I just want to do a quick intro for anybody that's new here. So hello if you're new, my name is Emma. I am the person who runs this YouTube, as you probably guessed, as well as the Instagram and the written blog for this page, and the links for everything else will be in the description box below as per usual. And before we dive into our psalm for today, which I'm sorry I forgot to do last week, I just want to spotlight our tea of the day. So it is this kind of gross color. It's like a brownish yellow color, or brownish orange color, but it tastes fantastic. It is the Republics of Tea Double Chocolate Mate tea. It is natural dark cocoa powder blended with organic roasted yerba mate leaves. I might be saying the mate part wrong, but it tastes fantastic. It's kind of chocolatey, so it's like a healthy hot chocolate, I guess. And I also like the Republic of Tea brand because their tea bags are they don't have staples or anything in them, so I'm pretty sure they're biodegradable without having to I also like this one, or the only other thing about this one that is kind of important to note is because it is cocoa powder, it does stick on your fingers a little bit, so your fingers are if you touch something right away, you might get them a bit brown with the cocoa powder, but it does taste fantastic. I would highly recommend it if you guys are chocolate lovers like I am. But before I ramble too much more, let's dive right into our psalm of the day. So our psalm today is from Psalm 126, and I'm just going to spotlight a couple of the verses in this psalm that I love the most. So the first one is verses 2 through 3. I can talk. And they say, "Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongues with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad." And then I also want to say verses 5 and 6, which say, "Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him." And I just, I love those portions because it's just so encouraging to us that while there are obviously good times and bad times, even in the times when it's hard, even in the times when we're full of sorrow and sadness, God is still going to come through in the morning. And today's chapter that we'll be studying for our identity in Christ, and then also in becoming a better partner in a relationship series, is going to be a continuation of last week's video, or a continuation of the book we were studying last week, which is the Song of Solomon. I think I think that this book is a really important one to study about relationships, just because it is talking about an ideal relationship in a sense. A lot of people will theorize that this book is about either God speaking to us as the church, or as I think it's more realistic that it's Solomon and his bride on their wedding night, because that's what it is. But yes, before I ramble any longer, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let's dive right on into the Song of Solomon chapter 2. So starting in verse 1, it says, "I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys." So I'm going to stop after verse 1 already. Wow, surprising, I know. But I think that's important for us to know that we need to recognize our own beauty as women, but not fixate on it. So I think it's important for us as women to be able to know how beautiful we are and how unique and special we are on our own, and because of our identity in Christ, especially before we enter into a relationship. Because if you are depending on your partner or spouse or whoever it may be to have that sense of worth in give you a sense of, oh, you're so beautiful, you're lovely, or whatever, that's not healthy in the relationship, because you need to be able to believe and know those things on your own first. So verse 2 is the man speaking, and he says, "As a lily among the brambles, so is my love among the young women." And then verse 3, she's speaking again, and she says, "As an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste." And I'm going to pause there because I think it's really important, as both the man and the woman here, as a lily among the brambles, as an apple tree among the forest. I think it's important that when you are in a relationship with someone, you should both see each other as a needle in the haystack. It shouldn't be something where you're just dating them because, they're like everybody else, but they have this one thing that's cooler, or, they're more attractive, or they're more whatever. I think it's really important that when you are in a serious Christ-centered relationship, that you guys both really see each other as super unique and amazing people that are a needle in a haystack, that you're a lily among the brambles, that he's an apple tree among, the other trees in the forest. It's not like they're like everybody else around them. It's that they're unique, and you love that uniqueness about them. And I also think, before I continue, I think it's also important that when Like in verse 1, how it says, I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. But it's important that you recognize that it's okay to be uniquely yourself before you're in a relationship. You should be comfortable being yourself and being authentically you and doing things that you enjoy doing for the sake of your enjoyment instead of doing them because you think, oh, well, Sally's doing this, so I should do this because Sally does it. You should really be focusing on doing things that you enjoy, having characteristics and practicing hobbies and things that you really enjoy, so that it's not like you're doing them to fit in with everybody else, but that you're really becoming authentically yourself before you enter into a relationship. And that being said as well, I think it's also important that when you are in a relationship, you guys focus still on the things that you enjoy doing on your own first. If you guys like to do things that are similar, you can do them together, but I think it's really important to not lose yourself in a relationship and to not let those hobbies, like, kind of fall to the side, or your interests, just to focus on what the other person wants. Because while obviously it's important to compromise, it's still important to be able to be your own separate people at the same time. So continuing into verse 4, it says, He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. And I also want to just pause there, because if you're in a Christ-centered relationship, your love for the other person and their love for you will be obvious, not just to you, but to people around you. Because if you are having issues being able to tell whether or not if somebody actually cares for you or vice versa, that's not healthy. You should be able to know right away whether and how someone feels about you if you guys are seriously looking for a relationship with each other, if that makes sense. So continuing into verse 5, again, she is still speaking. She's saying, Sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. And again, sorry I didn't say this in the beginning, but I'm reading from the English Standard Version. But I like how the New Living Translation says this as well, because where it says not to stir or up or awaken love until it pleases, it says do not awaken love until the time is right. And I think that that's really important, because while, obviously a lot of you guys are not married, and some of you may be, but while you are looking for the person that's going to be your spouse someday, I think it's important to remember that the time will be right. You'll know when the time is right with the right person. And you might think it's right with someone and it's not actually, but I think it's really important to recognize that there is a right time and a place and a season for that type of relationship in your life. And I also think it's kind of like a beautiful thing to note in verse 5 how she says that she's sick with love, because when you are truly in love with someone and when they're truly in love with you, it's something that's really hard to control. Like, you really yearn for the person, and when you're away from them, it just feels so miserable and lonely and terrible, because you truly love and care for the other person and you want to spend that time with them. That being said, it's also important that when you are feeling those feelings of loneliness, that you are not just only focusing on that relationship. You obviously have other things in your life happening too that you need to be paying attention to. But I think that it's just, I love how it's noted there that she's sick with love. I think that's such a beautiful way of wording it. And then the bride is still speaking here in verse 8 as we continue on, and it says, The voice of my beloved, behold he comes, leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice. And I want to pause there, because I think that it's really important as well here in verse 8, as it notes that, the man is going to be pursuing you. He's going to be leaping over mountains and bounding over the hills. Like, maybe not literally. I mean, probably not a literal thing anymore, but I think that it's just really wonderful and beautiful to know that, love has no bounds. When you truly love and care for someone, you are going to do almost everything in your power to be able to spend that time with them, to be able to have that relationship with them. And I think that it's important as well to note that while the man is supposed to be the one doing more of the pursuing, it's still important for you to pursue the man so that he knows that he's not just there, that he knows that you actually care about him and everything as well. So continuing into verse 10, it says, My beloved speaks and says to me, Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, and the time of singing has come, and the voice of the hurled is heard in our land. And I'm going to pause there, because I think that in verse 10 it's important to note how the man is saying, my love, my beautiful one. Whoever you are in a Christ-centered relationship with will not be afraid to claim you as his own, and vice versa. You should not be afraid to claim your partner as your partner. So if you are feeling a little bit like, oh, like should I claim them, should I not? It's probably not the right relationship for you, because when you're in a relationship with someone that you really want to be in a relationship with, you should be proud, like it's something that you think is really awesome. Like, hey, that's my person, that's my lover, that's my beloved. You know what I mean? And then I also think that in verses 11 and 12, how it talks about how the winter's gone, the rain has come, and the flowers are starting to come forth. There are seasons that are going to be not as healthy relationships, or seasons of singleness where, it can feel like it's winter or the rain is coming down and it's just not a wonderful time. It's really miserable sometimes. But I think that it's really important to remember that that hurt can pass, and it will pass, and that these flowers will start to bloom again. The spring will come, It's important to remember that when you are experiencing times of singleness, if you're feeling really alone, or if you're in a toxic relationship and you get out of it and you start to second guess yourself, I think or while you're in the relationship and you just don't understand, and you're experiencing pain and trials and hardships, if it's, obviously all relationships will have those, but toxic ones are especially so. But I think that it's really important to remember that, the winter will pass and spring will come. You just have to be willing to listen to God's guidance. And if you're listening to Him, spring will come, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So continuing into verse 13, it says, "The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet, and your face is lovely. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoiled vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom." And I'm going to pause there. And I think that in verse 15, it's important how it says, catch the foxes, the little foxes. And obviously here, it's probably talking about the literal animal, a fox. But I also think it could be taken figuratively, where it says, catch the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, because the vineyards are in blossom. So when there are little things that come up in a relationship, small disagreements that don't really matter in the long run, learn to deal with those little foxes and catch them right away, instead of letting them grow and fester into bigger and bigger issues that are going to spoil the fruits of the vineyard. And then continuing into verse 16, it says, "My beloved is mine, and I am his. He grazes among the lilies, until the day breathes and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on the cleft of the mountains." And that's the end of that's the end of chapter 2, as, if you're reading along, you can see. But again, I just think it's important that he claims her as his, and it says he gazes among the lilies. And that's another thing. When you are in a relationship with someone, it's important for you to remember, as well as for their perspective on you and your perspective on them, you can browse among all of the lilies or all of the apple trees, but it's really wonderful that, your partner and you chose each other. You guys browsed among them all, and you guys still came to the conclusion that this was the best one for you. And when you're going through those struggles and trials that inevitably come in every relationship, remember why you chose them over someone else, or over, the other apple trees or lilies, you know what I mean? I just think it's really important that on top of claiming each other, it's important that you remember why you chose them. Even when there are hardships that come up, you need to remember the positive things about them. And, obviously hardships sometimes come up to remind us, that this is probably not the right person. But it's still important to remember that and to note that and to think, I chose them for this reason. And while this might be hard right now, I know that in the end, this will be worth it. So I guess in summary, I want you guys to remember that, you are a lily among the brambles, is what I meant to say. And I think it's important that we all remember our own uniqueness as individuals and truly cultivate that uniqueness in the season of singleness before you're in a relationship. But while you're in that relationship, to remember that you both need to still cultivate the things that made you guys like each other in the first place, that made you guys fall for each other. So if I don't know why this is something that friend told me a joke about a basket weaving thing. So let's say that you really enjoy basket weaving. I don't, but let's say that you do. Instead of when you're in a relationship completely tossing that to the side, remember to still do that every once in a while, because it brings you joy. And if your partner really enjoys, going out and shooting with his buddies or something, let him go do that. Don't always be like, well, you have to spend time with me. You have to, do those things that you did before you were in a relationship. Otherwise, it can get kind of boring for both of you, because you're losing the things that you were interested in by yourself, and it can make the relationship seem like it's limiting you in some way, when it should not be that way at all. Or it should be the exact opposite. Instead of limiting you, it should be helping you expand and grow as a person and grow together as partners and in your relationship in Christ and everything. And I'm sorry this video is a little shorter than last week's, but I just yeah, I really hope that this series has been useful for you guys, like learn something about this. I hope that you guys are studying on your own as well. And if you guys have any thoughts on this, please feel free to leave them in the description box below or send me a message on Instagram. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys are new here, I hope that you guys will feel free to stick around and subscribe if you did enjoy. And as usual, if you guys leave a like on the video, it does really help the channel grow. And if you guys know anybody that you think could benefit from this, please feel free to share this video with them. I know that trying to develop your femininity and who you are in Christ and, developing who you are as a person can be kind of hard on your own. So if you have other friends that are in the same situation, feel free to help each other out, like that's what we're all here for, And sorry I say, so much. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, if you leave here knowing nothing else, I hope that you guys know just how loved and cherished and precious you are to the God that created you. I will see you guys next one. Bye guys!